Hello. This is an audiobook for Nutrition for Intuition by Doreen Virtue and Robert Reeves. Let's start from the introduction. Intuition is a natural skill we all possess, similar to our ability to breathe, speak, or see. At one point, it was considered a myth. Today, it is scientifically confirmed. One of the leading researchers on the topic of intuition, John Bargh of Yale University, says that our brains use unconscious automatic processes, which he terms automacity, to instantly evaluate and immediately apprehend our surroundings, with effects that are prevalent throughout our lives. Even so, intuition is not necessarily the go-to operating mode for everyone. A highly respected psychometric test called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Personality Inventory helps people pinpoint whether their natural tendency is more intuitive or sensory. Intuitive people tend to read between the lines, look for signs, and heed their inner signals when making decisions. Those who are sensory use their heads more than their hearts, and they focus upon facts, figures, and what they could tangibly measure and define. In other words, naturally intuitive people are more inner focused on their own impressions and feelings, and sensory people are focused on the outer world of what they can physically feel, see, and hear, and can analyze logically. Yet, after teaching psychic development classes to thousands of people, men and women, young and old, worldwide since 1995, I, Doreen, firmly believe that intuition is an innate faculty anyone can develop. We all have the capacity for intuition, and some have already practiced it to different degrees. Intuition is a valuable resource, yet if yours seems sporadic or hazy, this book can help you enjoy more consistency and clarity. Additionally, if you struggle to receive intuitive information, your diet may be blocking you. You can add foods and drinks to your lifestyle that will increase your intuition and spiritual awareness. Here are personal stories of how changing our diets improved our intuition and our lives. Doreen's story. Like many children, I was born with my clairvoyance wide open. In fact, I've had visions my entire life. However, although the visions were pleasant, I didn't understand or welcome them. I tried to consciously shut down my intuition since I was highly sensitive and could feel everyone's emotions. The bombarding energies were overwhelming. If this weren't enough, when I grew older and prayed for my divine life purpose to be revealed, I had visions of writing books and speaking in front of audiences and on television. These visions intimidated me. I loved writing, but I wondered, how do you get published and on TV, and what would I write about? I wanted a more accessible life purpose, but the visions continued with the message that I was supposed to write about spirituality. That is until my visions and intuition began to dim. The more I ate ice cream and other junk food, the less sensitive I was. I gained weight, but the payoff was that the visions stopped. Then one night, when my family was asleep upstairs, I grabbed the carton of ice cream and sat in front of the TV set. Before I could pick up the spoon, the message came to take a good look at what I was about to do. This gentle confrontation helped me see just how unhealthy and unlovingly I was treating myself. I put down the ice cream and got on my knees. I said to God, I don't know how to put these visions into action. I will surrender to your will, but I am frightened. That was the night that my whole life changed. The next day, following my guidance, without any junk food in my stomach, I enrolled in the local community college. I applied for and received the student loan to pay for my tuition and expenses. As guided, I took college courses on psychology part-time over the next decade, while working full-time as a secretary. My first job as a therapist was a volunteer position at an inpatient hospital treating drug addicts and alcoholics. Within 4 months, I was hired full-time and I was able to leave my secretarial position. I continued college in the evenings. At the hospital, I audited some group therapy sessions for people who had eating disorders. I instantly fell in love with eating disorder counseling and left the hospital position to work at an outpatient clinic. The supervising therapist supported me in opening a private practice specializing in treating compulsive overeating, bulimia, anorexia. My practice thrived and I continue doing research with my clients, attending conferences, and poring over scientific journal articles. I wrote several books about food and healing from eating disorders. Then in 1996, I began having visions of food. While meditating in my mind's eye, I could see images of what I commonly ate. It wasn't a conjuring image like when you're hungry. These were spontaneous visuals of foods appearing as three-dimensional objects. I had no idea why I was seeing this. It took me several months to realize that my food visions were answers to the question I'd asked of God about how to increase my visual intuition. What I learned from my scientific research and from the visions is that there are foods that turn off intuition and others that turn it on. I followed this visual guidance and changed my diet. Almost immediately, my visions vastly improved. It was like upgrading from a tiny television set to a high-definition large screen. Suddenly, my visions were fully formed and more understandable. Again, following my guidance, I began teaching classes to help others awaken their spiritual abilities to see and feel guidance. I taught my students about the connection between food and intuition, and many of them changed their diets with outcomes similar to the one I'd had. I also appeared on TV Food Network frequently, discussing the links between emotions and food, as well as other television and radio shows. This book is the result of all these experiences and my research coupled with the expertise of my friend and co-author Robert Reeves, an Australian naturopath. Robert's own studies and work have specialized in blending natural and spiritual healing methods, and he openly combines his intuitive work with his naturopathy. He has been successful in helping many people and enjoys a busy practice. Here is Robert's story about food and intuition. Robert's story. I began exploring spirituality at a young age. Something within me was fascinated by the topics of intuition and energetic healing. So, following my guidance, I began attending spiritual workshops at just 14. Naturally, I was the youngest person there and one of an only handful of males. Most spiritual seminars at the time were filled with audiences of women. Luckily for me, these loving mothers happily adopted me for the weekend workshops. It allowed me to feel safe and comfortable, the perfect setting to connect with my intuition. I practiced meditating regularly, working with oracle cards and giving healings. I felt strongly connected to my angels and was confident in my ability to understand their messages. A few years went by and I turned 18, which is the legal age of drinking alcohol in Australia. I suppose the normal thing to do when you come out of age will be to have a big party and get drunk. Well, that's not exactly what I did. I did have a big party with all my friends, which I catered with secretly vegetarian food. There were pretend sausages and fake bacon, some of which perhaps weren't as convincing as I thought, as well as fresh juices, since I wasn't, and still I am not interested in drinking alcohol at all. I didn't have a single drop. Despite my aversion to nightlife scene, my friends still drag me out to clubs from time to time. I went along with it because I already felt different enough and didn't want to be missing out. We hung out, my friend drank, and I was the driver. One night we grabbed some fast food before heading home, and as I ate, I felt a little strange. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I wasn't myself. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I had a hangover. I was the only person who didn't drink any alcohol, yet I woke with a splitting headache. It didn't make any sense. I suspected it was just the horrible energy of the clubs, but it felt like there was more to it. That day, I felt more distracted, restless, and unfocused. When I tried to connect with God and angels, it was more difficult than usual. I could sense my angels with me, yet I couldn't understand what guidance they were trying to give me. I'd worked so hard to build my intuition, and it felt like I'd taken steps backward in one night. So right in there, I made the decision to only go to places that felt positive and happy. A few weeks went by and I caught up with some friends for lunch. We met at a fast food place and I enjoyed a good chat while we ate. Later in the afternoon, I was back home doing some gardening. I love being outdoors in nature and surrounded by healing flowers. All of a sudden, I started to feel a headache coming on. It felt very similar to the hangover headache from a few weeks earlier. I put my hands on either side of my head as I silently asked, "What's going on?" I could feel my angels with me, but the lines of communication seemed clouded again. So I sat on the grass, closed my eyes, and breathed. Then I heard, "It's the fast food." My eyes flew open with shock, as I'd never even considered that. Unhealthy food was blocking my intuition and preventing me from hearing my angels. From that point on, I've taken note of how I feel when I try new foods. Do I feel more open and connected, or do I feel tired, unmotivated, and separated? These simple questions have helped me find the right foods for my body and energy. I've now come to fully understand that what you eat really does have a powerful impact on your intuitive abilities. About this book, in this book, you'll learn what to eat and what to avoid in order to augment your spiritual gifts of intuition and clairvoyance. Will also help you learn how to manage your intuition so that you're not overwhelmed with feelings and messages. Although there have been previous writings about how foods can increase intuition, they mostly were limited to recommending that you match the colors of your food to the colors of your chakras. In other words, they were recommending a plant-based diet with a rainbow of food colors. For example, eat a red apple to increase the energy of your red root chakra, and so forth. While it's helpful to consume colorful fruits and vegetables, nutrition for intuition covers more specifics because you need a deeper understanding of nutrition to supply your body with the full range of nutrition's needs. Nutrition just doesn't meet our diet, however. It really refers to our lifestyle and the way in which it affects whether we can clearly receive divine messages. So this book discusses foods, but it also touches on so much more. In part 1, we will explain how intuition works, the energy centers, and the physiology underlying clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and claircognizance, and the link to nutrition. Part 2 offers general advice on how to eat and honor your uniqueness, along with specific foods, liquids, and herbs to enhance your intuitive abilities. Finally, in part 3, we discuss the power of detoxing and chakra clearing methods to keep your energy high, as well as how to call upon the angels for help in changing your lifestyle. In addition, we have included an appendix in the back of the book with further information on the chakras, plus a handy chart summarizing the food recommendations to support your individual clairs, and a glossary of nutritional supplements. Our intention is to give you every available tool so that you can clearly understand the messages you're receiving from God and your highest self. You already are intuitive. You have natural intuitive abilities. In fact, science demonstrates that we all inherently do. And yet, if you struggle to connect with the divine, your diet could be a culprit. By making some shifts in what you eat and drink, you can allow your inner intuitive light to shine more brightly. I, Doreen, had profound positive changes in my intuitive and clairvoyant abilities when I listened to my inner guidance and made dietary changes. At first, I resisted these changes, but when I finally made the shift, the rewards were worth it. This book is a culmination of our personal experiences, guidance we received during readings, and feedback from our workshop participants. There's no one method of eating that's going to suit everyone. And we aren't trying to suggest that with this book. Instead, Nutrition for Intuition brings together the nutrition intuition research that we've gathered over the years based upon clinical and personal discoveries, along with medical and psychological studies. When our clients have adopted a certain way of approaching food, positive shifts have occurred. We want to share these concepts and a few recipes, which we know will help you in your quest for a greater intuition. Embrace the changes that you feel guided to make. Try some new things and allow God and your angels to help you along the way. With love and respect, Doreen and Robert. An important note, within this book, we share nutritional information about foods, herbs, and supplements. Please note that the suggestions and dosages may or may not be appropriate for you. Please check with your physician, healthcare professional, therapist, or dietitian prior to starting any new health regimes.